Good day, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. This is the last of our webinar series from the Food and Agriculture Division from SES Global Services, called Food and Agriculture Rising: Harness the Power of Independent Verification to Speak to Your Consumers. Today is the turn of the Responsible Sourcing Strategies Department, and we have our webinar called Responsible and Sustainable Sourcing Programs, Formalizing Your Supplier Expectations to Raise the Bar and Provide Transparency. My name is Jorge Ramirez, and I'm the Director of the Responsible Sourcing Strategies Department at SES Global Services, and I welcome everybody to this webinar. I have been with SES for 15 years now. I started as an auditor back in Guatemala, where I'm originally from, and now I have the pleasure to lead a team from the Department of Responsible Sourcing Strategies at SES Global Services. Before we get started, I would like to go through some logistic notes. Everybody will be in listen-only mode. We will have a Q&A session for approximately 15 minutes at the end of the presentation, if time allows. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the question box as they come up, and we will answer them at the end. If we don't get to those questions, we will follow up with you after the webinar to get those questions answered for you. And now I would like to invite our group of panelists. Aris, if I don't have control of the presentation, maybe you can
go
to the next slide.
But I can go to the next slide, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent. Then I would like to invite our panelists to put your camera so I can present each of you. First, I would like to introduce Abigail Cron, who is the Manager of Sustainability at Starbucks Coffee Trading Company based in Lausanne, Switzerland. And on her role, she leads the Starbucks Coffee and Farmer Equity, or Cafe Practices program, the cornerstone of the Starbucks ethical sourcing approach to buying coffee. Abigail and her team implement and manage the program and that measures farmers against economic, social, and environmental criteria, all designed to promote transparent, profitable, and sustainable coffee grown practices, while also protecting the well-being of coffee farmers and workers, their families, and their communities. Abigail also supports the broader sustainability initiatives at Starbucks and their commitment to carbon neutral green coffee for 2030. Welcome, Abigail, and thank you for being here. Next, we have Jamie Thorne. Welcome, Jamie, and thank you for being with us. Jamie is a senior manager for global responsibility at Starbucks Coffee Company, where she has worked since 2002. Jamie is responsible for advancing the company business objectives, brand reputation, and values of sustainability and social impact throughout the global supply chain. She has managed assurance models spanning the manufacturing, food, and beverage space. Is integral in the development on the sustainability dairy program for the company. Again, welcome, Jamie, and thank you. We also have Alexandre Vieira Costa Monteiro, who is the manager of ESG at Cochupe. Alexandre has 34 years of experience working with Cochupe, the largest coffee cooperative in the world, with over 17,000 members and the largest exporters of green coffee in Brazil. For the past 12 years, Alexandre has been responsible for coordinating sustainability programs such as 4C, Code of Conduct, Nespresso, Cafe Practices, Nescafe Plan, Rainforest Alliance, and UTZ Certified. The implementation of these programs involves training to agronomists and raising the awareness of the coffee growers, especially the smallholders, about sustainability practices required for different standards and code of conduct. In January of 2022, Alexandre was promoted to the ESG manager position at Cochupé to be in charge of the structuring of governance, incorporating social and environmental indicators in the company's business, addressing responsible sourcing. Welcome, Alexandre, and thank you for being with us. And we also have Iris Rattle, who is the program development manager for the responsible sourcing strategies department at SES Global Services. It's part of our team. And Iris has been a program lead for CAFE practices and involved with the development of other responsible sourcing strategies programs at SES. She's an experienced auditor, report reviewer, communicator, and auditor trainer, and has a background developing standards, program materials, and procedures. Her areas of study include Spanish, human nutrition, and international development from the University of Vienna, and is fluent in English, Spanish, and German. So welcome everybody. I'm really happy to have you here in this webinar from SES Global Services, and thank you for making the time to being with us and have this amazing conversation about responsible sourcing and sustainable sourcing. Before we get into details, I would like to have an introduction, and Iris, if you can, next slide, please. To the agenda in a little introduction to SES Global Services. SES Global Services, it's a certification body, international leading on third-party food safety, environmental sustainability certifications, and we also develop a standard. We have 30 plus years of experience with more than 30,000 certifications. We have auditors in all major markets, areas, and around the world, and with more than 24,000 clients. We specialize in auditing, testing, certification, verification, program development, training, and strategic consulting too. Next slide. And at SES Global Services, we divide the company in three major divisions. We have the Environmental Certification Services, or ECS. We also have the Natural Resources Division, and also the Food and Agriculture Division. That's where our department, Responsible Sourcing Strategies, is housed. And we, as you can see there in the slide, we have all this different portfolio of services that we offer to our clients. So a little bit of background of what we do at SES Global Services in our three divisions that we focus. Next slide. And what do we do in the Responsible Sourcing Strategies Department? We work very closely with the companies and organizations that we call on their proprietary standards or private standards. As you know, there are different type of certifications in different standards, different schemes around the world. And in the Responsible Sourcing Strategies Department, we specialize on working with the customers on customized programs, and that we work with them on developing them and implement those process and programs with them. So that is part of the work that we do, and we have different activities that we create with our clients. We have different roles that we can work with our clients in the verification programs. We oversee some verification organizations or other CVs in the world. We train verifiers and inspectors. We do auditing too of those organizations or inspectors in the world. We do program oversight for the credibility of those programs. We implement and create from scratch or improve some already developed programs from sustainability departments from some companies. We do some benchmarking also with certification standards, and we adapt to the needs of our clients based on their private programs or proprietary programs that they would like to develop. So now going to the question and the conversation that we're going to have with our panelists, and I invite them to come back and with their cameras, and I will give the mic to Iris Rattle to lead the conversation and start thinking about the question: responsible sourcing, sustainable sourcing. Thank you, Iris.
Thank you, Jorge. Yes, and thank you for the introductions to our amazing panel today. We're really excited about the conversation that we're going to have with these very interesting persons here today on the panel. But maybe before we get started, Jorge, why don't you start a little bit of providing some more of your background and how you ended up in a career in responsible sourcing and why you continue pursuing it.
My background, I studied agricultural science and environmental science in Guatemala, and I started just being an auditor actually for cafe practices. That's how I started at SES. I worked before 5 years with a coffee exporter in Guatemala, actually kind of like implementing cafe practices, just like giving an overview of the program to producers, actually small producers, as Alexandre has done also in the past. And then I ended up at SES doing the audits for cafe practices, overseeing verification organizations. Definitely something that marked my life to be involved in what I call we're doing something good for the world, especially on coffee production, because what was the coffee production many years ago with a lot of use of resources has changed a lot. Resources like water, for example, the farms in the past, they use a lot of water to depulp the coffee. Now, a lot of things have changed and implement different strategies to reduce the use of the water, and it's based on these sustainable programs, responsible programs that are being required. So being in the side of the exporters, I understand that sometimes it's a little bit difficult to comply with all these programs and criteria, but then moving to the other side was like an eye-opener to understand, oh yeah, this is why we need these things, and we also need to have your products have a claim for your consumers that it's is responsible, so responsibly sourced, that your suppliers are making also the effort to have a product that will be making a good thing for the environment, for the world, for the persons. So um, yeah, then one thing led to another, and I ended up being on a desk more than in the field. That is something that I really missed, but I'm here, there, involved with an amazing team, and uh, working, still and trying to, with a little thing, maybe things are not totally perfect or things are not totally the covering everything, but I think that there are great things done by different programs, and just to have just to participate on the initiatives that some companies can have from very small to growing a lot, it has been an amazing experience for me. Yes, for sure.
Thanks, Jorge. And since you mentioned cafe practices, Abigail, maybe we can hear a bit more from you, how you ended up in a career in responsible sourcing and in cafe practices, and what you, what your thoughts are related to responsible and sustainable sourcing as it relates to your work that you do.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And thank you for the opportunity. And thank you again to SCS for hosting this conversation. Always excited to talk about responsible sourcing, particularly with experts in the field, which I'm surrounded by here. So it's fantastic to be here. I actually grew up in an agricultural community, and I have, so from a very early age, found a lot of respect for those who produce the goods that we consume, particularly in food and beverage, which was the community I grew up in. I also love to eat and indulge in beverages, particularly coffee. So it's kind of this perfect combination of what I'd love to do in my personal life and of course professional life. So just about 11 years ago now, I was introduced to Starbucks in my career and couldn't be happier to remain here today. So throughout those 11 years, I've had a variety of roles, sort of specific areas of focus, starting in sort of the quality and development side of coffee. So cupping coffee, for many of you on the call, you might be familiar with the quality aspects of coffee, but managing the quality aspects, moving into traceability, which is getting our consumers closer to the information as to where their coffee comes from. Also working on the other side to ensure that the producers who are responsible for ensuring this product is available to us to consume every day also have more information about where their coffee is going, which led to my role here in Switzerland managing the Cafe Practices program. I am joining a history of many incredibly talented individuals that worked on this program before myself, so I'm very proud to be leading it now, but it is only here because of the partnerships that have been in place before my tenure, including Alexandre and Jamie, both of who are on the call, have had their hand in Cafe Practices, if you will. And now my role focuses specifically on the third-party verifications within Cafe Practices, so those social and environmental responsibilities that were mentioned. And we are constantly evolving the program, so always looking at ways to continue to push the boundaries, again, with partnerships like those we have with Guaxupé is represented on the call. And it's a limited conversation because we could spend all day just in the definition of responsible sourcing itself. But for me, it's respecting the people who are involved, every single individual who's part of the supply chain. I found, again, in the community I grew up in, that farmers that I knew were some of the most environmentally forward-thinking people that I've run into, simply because that's their livelihood, is reliant on the land, and they are so intrinsically connected to the land which we all live on. But all the way through the baristas at Starbucks kind of demanding more from us as a company, from ourselves as a company, and our customers as well. So responsible sourcing hits every individual, from again, where the product is grown to where it's consumed, and then of course the environment in which it takes place as well. So it covers all those aspects and more, but I'll stop there.
For now, yes, and we can dive into some of those aspects a little bit later in our conversation. Thanks, Abigail. Yeah, since we are kind of on the note of cafe practices and coffee specifically, Alexandre, would you mind explaining us a little bit about the work that you do in responsible sourcing and how that connects to your personal motivation of being part of this industry?
Okay, thank you. I am very happy to be here and to change experience with Starbucks, with SCS, and I am very proud and happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. So we think that responsibility is the key word of sustainability, because we think that all the actors in the supply chain has to be responsible. And in the end of the process, we can reach sustainability. We are seeing one thing that I saw last week is that the ship owners exchange ship engines for sailing ships. So all the actors has to be responsible, that in the end of the process, in the end, we can offer a sustainable product for the consumers. And what excites us here in Brazil, especially with the small growers, is that we can make a support for them to promote the sustainability, to respect the people. We have responsibility with the business and preserve the environment. This is a responsibility that we share with our producers, and we are very happy because the producers all over these 15 years that we work with sustainability, the young producers that comes, the young producers are more, let's say, concerned about these questions. And we are making a lot of improvements in the fields because 50 years ago, we asked for the producers to be responsible. Now the producers are come to us and ask for what they have to do to be responsible. So in this way, we think that we are improving. We think that we are, let's say, making actions in the field, take actions in the field to promote the sustainability. And in the end of this process, we can guarantee for the smallholders access to the market, because it's very important for us to make good business, to make to promote, to make available for the producers access to the market, access to the sustainable market, so that we can share information, that we can have results and profits to implement the sustainability. So, and we as a cooperative, we think that the cooperativism is the almost perfect sustainable model, because we are a group of persons, a group of people that care about people. We are not business to business. We are not business to consumers. We are people to people. We are an organization of people. And our job here every day is to take care of the people. So the cooperativism is it's a model that a group of producers join to solve common problems, to have safe trade, to have technical assistance, finance assistance, governance, respect for the business, so that we can have responsibility in the supply chain. And any one of the supply chain actors have to be irresponsible to cut the supply chain. And we saw a lot of things happen in this year about wars, about logistic collapses that interfere in our business a lot. So we cannot have results if someone of the actors in the supply chain are irresponsible. We have to be responsible, every actor in the supply chain, that we can offer for the final consumers a sustainable product. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alexandre. Yeah, there are several things that I wrote down as you were talking, very fascinating points that I would like to explore a little bit later too. Before we do that though, maybe handing it over to Jamie to hear from her, as she has experience not only in coffee, but with other products as well. And excited to hear from you how you ended up in responsible sourcing and what motivates you.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. And it's great to be on this panel with some of my colleagues that I don't see very often across the world, and as well as with you, Alessandra, on your coffee journey. It's really exciting to hear about. So my path is a little bit different. When I started at Starbucks, most of my work was within the procurement organization. So I was supporting the purchases within our store development department. So as we think about behind the bar, refrigerators, ovens, front of house, tables, chairs, etc., we were making sure that stores were opening. And a few years into this role, we developed a new program within supply chain called Sustainable Procurement Practices. And they were hiring. And my boss was like, this seems like a path for you. And so I applied for the job, and he said, before you go for that interview, read this article. And it was called Secrets, Lies, and Sweatshops. So it was really all about the evolution of manufacturing in different countries and the cost of labor and how it affects people. And this just really struck me because I grew up in a family of factory workers. So in Wisconsin, my dad, my grandparents, aunts and uncles, they all worked for Uniroyal, and they built tires for their entire lives. And so I grew up seeing how shift work can affect families for good or bad, but also like going for that overtime, always wanting more overtime. And it was really interesting when I landed the role in manufacturing that this is happening no matter where you are, whatever country you're in. There are issues related to health and safety, related to working hours, overtime, wages. And it really brought it back home to me on kind of what my parents went through. And even though these are good jobs, it's tough work. And so I was initially just really passionate about the work and had such a great learning opportunity through this, focused on a lot of the manufacturing that we do in China, but we also brought it full circle to a global scale to look at the different manufacturing practices around the world. And I think it was fascinating to me to see how Starbucks applied the principles of cafe practices to the other products that we procure for our customers around the globe. And then since then, I've had the great opportunity to work on some of our other agricultural products as we look at our public-facing goals, and most recently looking at sustainable dairy. So I'm part of that team and the development of a program that somewhat mimics the other work that we're doing, but takes the right approach as it relates to the industry within dairy in order to support farmers and cooperatives as we engage with them. The one thing I will say, it really echoes what Abigail and Alexandra have said, is it is not, it's not just a one-size-fits-all approach. It is social, environmental, economic. Really, without economic viability, it seems that that is the precursor to doing good as it relates to social and environmental. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention animal welfare. So as we look at these programs, responsible sourcing takes all of those pieces into account and really brings it into a holistic approach. You apply different principles to each one of those areas, but you can't really do one without the other. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent points. The what you're mentioning with the garment production, I recall the collapse of the Rana Plaza. That was big in the news, at least in Europe when I was living there. I'm not sure how much coverage I got here in the US, but that was one of the key moments also for me to see how close the consumer is to the workers who produce the products that we consume on a daily basis. And I think as I was getting into just like finding out what type of work I wanted to do, it felt natural to be part of an industry that works in the middle between those producers and the consumers to understand. Because personally, just out of curiosity, I wanted to understand better how that links work. As a consumer, I mean, I'm a consumer too of a lot of products, and I don't understand the supply chains, and I can just imagine how complex each supply chain is for all of these products. And for some with coffee, the product doesn't go through too many steps, but when we hear about phones and other types of products that have like a lot of different processes and huge supply chains that all come together for one final product, it's mind-blowing in a way. And when we think about how companies work with those supply chains, with the suppliers, Alexandra, what you mentioned earlier was the relationship that you have with everyone in the supply chain, because you rely on each other. If one actor doesn't do their job right, then that jeopardizes the entire supply chain. And I think in addition with other challenges that we are facing right now, sometimes explained as the 3 C's, the climate crisis, but then also COVID and conflict. There are so many outside challenges that companies have to deal with while they are doing business. And as we can see in a lot of mission statements from companies, there are to serve people. And when we look at the supply chains of companies, seeing how many different individuals are involved, and also Jamie, as you're saying, with your background of knowing how your family was impacted by the way how they work. It's a huge step for a company to think about what does it mean for us to source responsible, to engage in a conversation, in a dialogue with our suppliers to understand what their challenges are, so that we can all work together and provide the transparency that we need in order to collaborate without the risk of failure in the supply chain. So maybe talking about that more, Alexandre, I would like to maybe dive a little bit more on what you mentioned earlier with the collaboration between the producers. Jamie mentioned the importance of having the different pillars, so also the economic part in addition to social and environmental, what a lot of standards focus on. I'd be curious to hear more how the producers that you work with experience the different pillars that make up sustainability and how challenging it might be for them to combine that. And you as a co-op, how do you address focusing on social aspects while at the same time trying to protect the environment and making an income that allows you to continue doing what you're doing?
Yeah, okay, thank you, Alice. I just like to, before I respond your answer, I'd like to tell to Jamie and Abigail that each cup of coffee you offer for the customers, you are making a smile in the face of 100,000 producers all over the world. Thank you so much. So about your question, is that the social issue is one of the most concern of us, because we have in Brazil, we have a strict laws, social laws that protect the workers in the fields. And the producers they have to have a lot of information, trainings on how to treat the workers, how to make a good relationship between producer and workers. And we work hard for the producers to make the best business, because if the producers can get profit, if the producers reduce the cost of production, if the producers has high quality, they can get more money, and with more money, with profit, they can care better the workers if they example, if they don't have profit. So it's a economic aspect that we are very our concern, because we have a strictly rules, economic rules in our cooperative to reduce costs and provide our members to have profit and give better life for the workers. I think that it is the main challenge of the social issue at sustainability. But we know well that we have some problems in the social laws here in Brazil, because we have a labor ministry that stay all the time in the fields to check if the workers are in good work conditions or not. And if not, they will ask for the producers to solve this problem. We have an open channel for the people to call to the labor ministry to to tell that someone is not seeking the law, the Brazilian laws here in Brazil. So, but what happens in the market is the opposite. I think that we have to be recognized as a social country that take care of the workers, not the opposite, that we are very slavers and things like that. So no, we have problems, but what happens is that the national authorities are strictly to take care of the workers and the relationship between producers and workers. This is one, in parallel, we have a big challenge. Our agriculture here in Brazil, because we have to change the mind of Brazil outside Brazil, because we know that people abroad think that Brazil make a lot of deforestation and we have a lot of social problems. Yes, we have, but we are developing actions to mitigate the impacts of these actions. So this is a big challenge for us, and it's not easy. It's not easy because people doesn't know about Brazil, and they just hear about Brazil. If you heard about Brazil, you are not right about Brazil. So to finalize, the social aspect is one of the big challenges, and we are making, let's say, improvement in this area, so that we can provide for the producers the good conditions for them to take care of their employees.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Alexandre. Very, very interesting. And you mentioned one thing which leads me to the work that SCS does together with Starbucks on the Cafe Practices program, which is the producer needs to learn what sustainability even means. They're approached by companies like, I want you to produce sustainably, but they need the guide and the support. And I definitely agree. The co-op is a great opportunity, brings producers firsthand together for supporting each other, which is a great model. And then making sure that the producers who work together, who collaborate and improve the practices on social and environmental aspects actually are the ones that are receiving the benefits. I think traceability is one of the topics that is very strong in CAFE practices, and also the topic of today with traceability. So maybe Abigail, I'd be curious to hear from you how, especially the work that you have done previously, how traceability and transparency correlates with responsible sourcing.
Yeah, I'd be happy to expand on that. And again, Alexandre, it's so interesting to hear some of the points you're making, and I couldn't agree more. I think it is so easy to make judgments around certain types of farming or certain countries without knowing sort of the broader context in Brazil, and we also see that in other locations as well. But absolutely, when it comes to traceability and transparency, I think one thing I've found myself saying often, and it might sound dramatic, but it's true, is you can't really claim ethical sourcing or responsible sourcing without transparency. It's really critical to understand exactly where you're sourcing your products from the very beginning of where that product was created, which I think Jamie made this point, but in coffee, it's a bit simpler, or it should be simpler, right? Because in Starbucks, we take the product from green coffee, which is a pretty early on stage, all the way through the roasted product. But even with something as, with the supply chain of coffee, there's still a lot of areas that we need to have clear traceability into, to make sure that we're understanding anytime that product has changed hands or changed sort of its change within processing. So again, the importance boils down to, without that traceability, you can't really verify anything else. And as I mentioned, there's kind of two components to that. One is who is involved. So from, I think, Alexandre, you mentioned this as well, but from the workers who are employed by farmers potentially to the farmers themselves. So anyone that's responsible in any way for the coffee, to the locations where that coffee has been. And those two things, again, are connected, because if the coffee is moved from one location to another, there's a person responsible for that. So we need to know both sides of what those components are in order to evaluate that. In both cases, the coffee itself is being treated with the respect it is required, as are the people who are responsible for handling it. So very simply, traceability is that a critical component to ensuring that responsible sourcing is in place.
And mutually that, oh, Jamie, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I may, and you touched on transparency as well, being so critical to our supply chains. And I think a big part of that, and it stems from the work we've done in coffee too, is how do we provide support and engage in continuous improvement? And we hear that term a lot, but without transparency, you don't know the situation. So if Starbucks wants to invest with our supply chain, we must know what's actually occurring so we can say, here's where, the opportunities really lie that we can help support sustainable practices going forward, whether it's social or environmental or purely economic. And I think that's something that we've done a really great job in coffee, and we look to translate into other programs.
And just to add too, from experience too, we have seen that uh, again, like you mentioned, Jamie, that is key for investment for any program. With other programs that we have been working, they want to understand where the product that they are buying is coming from, so they can motivate those producers to improve in different aspects, in quality, in sustainability, in good practice, good agricultural practice too. And without that information, any company in the world that, or the companies that we have seen, they won't invest in also they want to invest in uh, training producers, elaborating the knowledge of the producers, like Alexandra was saying. They want to be motivated, and the only motivation is by teaching what did all this world about sustainability or being responsible with the products that they are producing it's about. So I think that's the other way of some other companies too, to invest in their programs with their producers in a way to create more awareness of sustainability in general.
Yeah, and really, like, everyone needs to have some skin in the game here, right? Like, we can't expect our suppliers and producers to achieve goals without support. And so while we have these bold goals out there, and they may as well, it's really bringing everything together, partnering, and everyone contributing to those solutions.
And I would just add,
sorry, Miguel.
Alexandra. I think it's important to add here, and Jamie, I appreciate you jumping in and adding to this conversation, because transparency is not just a matter of knowing your supply chain, but it's also recognizing areas of opportunity, to your point, so we know where to invest in. And I think one of the reasons I'm incredibly proud to work for a company like Starbucks is they not only are willing to look at ourselves and critically understand where we can serve, where there are opportunities to improve, but we publicly share those opportunities as well. So Conservation International is another partner of Starbucks who creates social impact reports to evaluate, without our input, they evaluate where are areas that Cafe Practices is highlighting that need improvement. Alexandra, you also mentioned there are opportunities for improvement in the supply chain, and we all recognize that. That's why programs like Cafe Practices exist. But we need to be transparent about those areas as well. And one of the areas that we often get feedback are from our own partners or employees. We call them Starbucks partners. We often get feedback for areas that they want to learn more about, as well as our customers. So transparency makes us all better. And thank you, Alexandra. You also had some comments to share.
Yes, thank you, Miguel. Yes, transparency is let's say, is the first point, because transparency means that you recognize that you have problems. And once you recognize that you have problems, the traceability could help you to see where is the problem and how to solve this problem. So transparency and traceability, it's a fundamental words to implement the sustainability. First, recognize, yes, the coffee production all over the world has problems, and with the processes to trace all the steps, all the production steps, we can define where is the problem and how to solve the problem. It is very important, and we are in the same page with this, and Cafe Practices and other sustainable codes of conduct teaching us how to do it.
Yes, and I think what I'm hearing here, it goes both ways, right? Without the transparency, you don't really know what's going on in your supply chain. And once you invest in a bigger program to understand what is going on in your supply chain, it also helps you to mitigate risk and detect the areas where you can continuously improve, as as it applies to all of us in all of our different positions. And that leads us to another topic that is part of the title of our conversation today, which is about raising the bar. And I'm curious to hear from our panelists how they experience that working in a responsible sourcing program or project has shown them how they can raise the bar for consumers and for the companies as well as for their producers. Jamie, do you want to go first?
I will try. I think there's a lot of ways that you can raise the bar, but you have to recognize that progress is key and perfection is not. And so it's a series of small steps. And it really, like going back to the conversation we just had, it starts with building trust, because without it, you can't get far. But once you have trust within those partnerships, you get to transparency. And once you have transparency and traceability, you do really start raising the bar because there's this opportunity to engage. And then I think it also starts with awareness and making sustainability or responsible sourcing a norm rather than an add-on. And I do think we're at that point where this is no longer a nice to have, it's a necessity, and it's where companies and all organizations have really moved towards. And so that awareness piece has been really, really key. And from awareness, you can start to build knowledge and open those lines of communication, which get you more towards these commitments. And so I know that those are kind of like lofty, high-level comments, but they really are the tenets in which we can start applying principles against as it comes to responsible sourcing.
I would like just to remark what Jamie just said about it's amazing what you just said is that, you know, progress is key and perfection is difficult to ask producers to be perfect on a program, on a sustainability program from the beginning. So it comes always, you know, kind of like the common wording about continuous improvement. I think that that's one of the amazing aspects about sustainability programs. The majority are involved on continuous improvement. So I think that that's something that it's very important Alexandre has had the experience in the field working with the producers on you cannot demand something to a producer. You need to continuous and, you know, progress in a progress way to bring them to sustainability, to the efforts about sustainability, because producers are used to just produce in a way, but we need that continuous improvement to be involved to attract the producers, not to you know, put them away and afraid of participating on these sustainability projects, right, Alexandre?
Yes, George. Yes, it's perfect. But I'd like to add something that I think that is important. But I just want to tell to improve and because I think that we have to transform the audit in a human way. Nowadays, the auditors are punitive. The auditors come to the farm just to see problems, and he forget about the improvements that the producers made all over the 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And then they make a report, just report the bad things that the producers are doing in the farm. And the producers doesn't like that. The producers want to have motivation. And if we transform the audit, not in punitive, but human, proactive, positive, and then we can raise the bar and the producers will understand it. So we have to change something in the audit program because when the producers hear that the auditors goes to his farm, oh, it is a panic for them. It's a panic for them because a person that I've never seen in my life come to my farm and tell me that everything is wrong. So we think that is not the correct way to motivate the producers to engage the sustainability. We have to be more human, understand the profile of the small producers, and tell them good things about the improvements that they made over the last years, but of course, tell them what the issues that they have to improve, because they have to improve. So this is one important thing that I'd like to mention, because over the last years, the auditors becomes more, let's say, friendly. Not friendly that we can just tell them that everything is okay. No, no, it's not this one. We want that the auditors are human and understand the profile of the producers and make the reporting the good things and the bad things that they have to improve.
Thank you. Yeah, that's always a good reminder to hear that as we get so stuck in reviewing and writing audit reports, and it's it's kind of a task we go through, but that's also one reason why we're talking about the human side in all of this, right? Also, we are doing business between companies, but there are always people behind the business. And as an auditor, especially when with social aspects and standards as well, we get in touch with a lot of workers and farmers, and we can't underestimate the work that they do in order to produce the final product. Without the producers in the first place, there is no end product in sight.
Yes, I just like to emphasize that the auditors are, let's say, better than the past. Better than the past. They treat the producers with respect, with, let's say, with and understanding. But the final report, we just read bad things. We want to motivate my team, the agronomists, to go to the field, and I have to tell them, oh, you were good because you made these improvements over the last years. It's okay. Let's go ahead. Let's move forward. But when they receive the report, just bad things, my agronomists tell me, hey, Alexandre, we are working hard to improve all these issues, and we receive just bad things about sustainability. What's going on? So, but over the last years, the auditors are very polite, very polite with the producers. But the final report, we just see bad things. We want to see good things, and broadcast these good things, and tell to the market that we are improving our services and made impacts, positive impacts in the fields. It's very important for us.
Yes, and I think that's where responsible sourcing programs can come when it comes to communicating those things. We know that there are nice stories that companies want to tell, and maybe the other way, it's a relationship of communicating both things, the continuous improvement as well as areas for improvement that goes to both sides. We are 5 minutes before the end of our webinar already. Amazing how time flies. I just want to briefly check with our audience if there are any questions. I don't see a lot in the chat yet, so feel free to post some more questions. Otherwise, we'll start wrapping it up with some last comments.
And maybe, Abigail, you wanted to comment too on the last topic and give you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't resonate more with what Alexandre is saying. I think that we often, Iris, with the prompt about raising the bar is being raised naturally with the pressures, the natural pressures that are facing, particularly in coffee with climate change. You mentioned the climate crisis, also COVID. I mean, every year to do the same effort is more challenging, just with the additional pressures that are happening naturally. So I do think it's important to recognize that sometimes what might look like staying the same is actually in itself the bar, it has been raised around us. So we are always looking for that balance of keeping in context just how much the producers are doing to grow coffee of the quality that we require, but also with all of the environmental standards and social pressures we have in place, which is not a small task. This is why the tenet of cafe practices is continuous improvement, and that serves not only for the producers, but also for ourselves as organizers and administrators, and I know for the supply chain partners such as Alessandra and the suppliers, the support producers. So something that can often get overlooked. We're always looking for, what are we continuing to improve on? And sometimes it's the fact that we're still delivering, or I should say still purchasing coffee in the volumes we are, is a testament to the incredible effort the coffee producers are putting in despite all those challenges. So just wanted to add that comment.
Thanks, Abigail.
Great, thank you. We almost ran out of time. It's amazing how the conversation just flew us, and we can talk about these topics for maybe another hour or two. But maybe if you allow me, I got some key points that I would like to just to mention, and you let me know if you agree with them and that I think we need to remark about the conversation. Motivating the producers and support is one of the important aspects of responsible sourcing, including also this comment by Alexandre, the young producers. We need to motivate the young producers to be involved again in sustainability, responsible sourcing. The producers relationship is key. No matter the product, coffee, tea, bananas, pineapples, whatever, we need to have a relationship with the producers. I think it's not longer just buying a product and that's it. I think it's important for responsible sourcing and care about the producers and the workers too. I think it's very important, and we mentioned on the comment. Definitely, there are different interests from different sustainability programs in companies. What is the interest? Some of them are social, some of them environmental, some of them combine. Transparency, definitely it's key, but different aspects depending on the programs. Supply chains are complex. They are not easy, so that's important to understand, and I think that we talk about it. And it's not easy just to ask, oh yeah, we need the responsible sourcing supply chain and that's it. I think there is a lot involved there, and it's not easy for suppliers and also for producers. So we need a lot of involvement from them into this world of sustainability and responsible sourcing. Traceability is critical to have actually a responsible sourcing. Programs can be implemented, but traceability and transparency, I think Alexander added that too. It's key, and I really liked what Jamie mentioned about progress is key, and the perfection is not that easy. So definitely something to consider on something that Abigail always mentions, continuous improvement. It's a very important aspect. So yeah, just wanted to kind of like wrap her up with some comments that everybody made. And yeah, I think it has been a great conversation. Again, this is a topic that we can talk more and develop more. So yeah, and then on behalf of SES Global Services, we want to thank you for accepting this invitation to have this conversation about this. And I think it went again very fluent. So appreciate everybody's time to be here with us. So, and if from the panelists, and sorry that we didn't get to, I see some questions too. We are going to respond to them, and the webinar you will receive the recording tomorrow. And if you have further questions, you have the information from Iris and myself to be reached. So again, thank you. I don't know if everybody wants to say something really quick, just or say goodbye, but it was just amazing to see that the time was flying in with the conversation. So thanks again.
Thank you, and hope to see you here in Brazil, James, Abigail, Iris, and Georgie, to see how we work here.
Thank you, Alexander.
I would love to, yes.
We'd love that. Thanks, everyone. This was a fun conversation to talk about this good work because it feels good to do good work, right? Appreciate it.
Definitely.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks
for
so much for joining the panel today.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for all the participants. And that's a wrap. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.